This is the latest addition to Lexus's stable. It's called the RZ, and there's a lot riding on this car because while Lexus was early to the luxury space with hybrid electrics, it's quite late to the piece with this, its first ground-up EV. The question is, has time given Lexus the luxury of perspective? Has it been able to provide something quite different with this EV? Or is it too little too late? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Like many other Lexus models, in terms of what's out there in that luxury space, the RZ actually isn't too expensive. It's only available in one all-wheel drive 450e variant for now, in two trim levels, the base luxury and top spec sports luxury. This mid-size electric SUV segment is hotly contested, with every premium brand wanting a piece. For example, rivals at this price include the Genesis GV70 Electrified and smaller GV60, base BMW iX or iX3, as well as the Jaguar I-Pace and Audi e-tron. Standard equipment on the base RZ luxury grade includes things like 18-inch alloy wheels, synthetic leather interior trim, and that huge 14-inch multimedia screen setup in the front, while the sports luxury grade adds suede interior trim, an electrochromatic sunroof, 20-inch alloy wheels, acoustic glass, contrast exterior styling, a head-up display, and an even higher grade audio system. Both grades get LED headlights as standard and all the available safety features, but only the sports luxury gets the adaptive headlight suite. Features missing on some rivals include vehicle-to-load two-way charging features or an 800-volt battery system, but I think only some buyers will understand or even use such features. Either way, you score a 71.4 kilowatt-hour battery, good for a 400-kilometer driving range on the WLTP cycle, and dual-motor all-wheel drive. Lexus says two-wheel drive versions aren't in its plans, at least for now. We'll talk more about battery and motor tech later, but the RZ delivers some new technologies for the Lexus brand. If you're a savvy potential EV buyer, you might know that the RZ shares its eTNGA platform with its Toyota equivalent, the bZ4X, and its Subaru spin-off, the Solterra. Unlike those cars though, which don't look terribly different from the outside, the RZ has a much more dramatically overhauled body, to the point where it's almost hard to tell this mid-size SUV is related at all. Lexus has done an admirable job of switching things up and allowing its spindle design theme to permeate the car's body. It says it has deliberately embedded the pattern in its grille and used coloured highlights to draw attention to the car's styling rather than its expansive panels, which it needs to keep that drag coefficient low. Where I'm most a fan of this car from the outside though is this rear aspect, and that's because it looks so contemporary and modern while maintaining that Lexus design language. Particular highlights are this weird split spoiler on the roof here, this nice lip that's built into the tailgate, and of course these lights which come across the rear and have the Lexus typeface right down there. Now this car might be quite a bit Lexus from the outside, but on the inside I think is where it goes most Lexus. The brand has absolutely gone to town designing this lovely dash piece, big screens, and nice flowing elements to the interior. And this one we're in here, the sports luxury, gets this ultra suede interior treatment which works its way through the doors, into the seats, and it even appears in all sorts of other little areas throughout. Now you do get as well a feature that's becoming more common in these high-end EVs, and that's this electrochromatic sunroof, which I don't know if you could see that on the film, but it just sort of pops and changes whether it's see-through or opaque, which is quite neat. Now, another welcome addition are these large screens, which are starting to appear in more Lexus products. And this one here, it looks great. It's got more simple software than before, which is an area where sort of Lexus has struggled in the past, although there are still quite a few complex menus if you do want to turn something off, like driver attention monitoring, which we'll talk about later. Now, in terms of practicality, there are quite a few additions on the inside here, which I really like. So there's a large bottle holder in the doors, two more in this center console here, a nice kind of tidy dial shifter setup, wireless charger in both grades, USB-C across the board, and a bridge underneath as well, where you can store all sorts of objects, which is welcome because you don't get a glove box. Importantly, it feels more like a car in the traditional sense and less like it's trying too hard to be an EV like some of its contemporaries. Let's check out the back seat next. In the back here, there are a couple of really notable features about the RZ. Firstly, this is behind my own seating position, and as you can see, I've got heaps of knee room, so that's really good and goes to show that the brand is really making the most of that extra long wheelbase in here. But you might notice that my knees are really high off the ground, and that's because the floor in this car, both in the front and in the rear here, is really high off the ground to facilitate those batteries. It's just a little odd. I feel like I'm sort of tilted back into this seat a little bit. It's not like I don't have a lot of room though, so that's, I guess, really what you're going for here. Now, that trim continues into these doors. It's nice and soft in terms of everything that you look, feel and touch. There's bottle holders in the doors here, a further few in this drop-down armrest piece as well. In terms of amenities in the rear, you've got some great things as well. There's dual adjustable air vents, although there is no third climate zone. You've got 2 USB-C ports, one for each side, and 2 heated seats, one for each side as well, which is a welcome addition. There's also a 12-volt outlet and pockets on the backs of each seat. And of course, you get your own sunroof back here too. Boot space comes in at 522 litres, which seems decent for the class, and there's space under the floor for the storage of charging cables. Unlike some brands, Lexus chucks in the Type 2 public charging cable as well as a wall socket cable for free. There's only one Lexus RZ drivetrain, a twin motor setup which produces a combined 230 kilowatts across both axles. But interestingly, the split is far from even, with the majority of power being sent to the front. However, the computer-controlled system switches up the torque split on the fly when the car corners for improved balance. In fact, the RZ also has a clever computer-balanced brake system to keep the car level under heavy braking, as well as debuting a frequency-sensitive set of pistons in the suspension for a more reactive and comfortable ride. Now, to drive an EV like this, we usually accept quite a few standard things. Usually they're quite firm, and that helps control the weight of the batteries. But in case of this Lexus, things are quite different. This car feels soft and light, and it just sort of floats over the road. And that's helped along by like really light steering, although I will say that it doesn't have an awful lot of feel coming back and feedback from the road. So it feels just a little bit vague and changes quite a bit depending on the drive mode you're in as well. That soft ride is really fascinating because you do still feel the weight of the batteries this car has move it back and forth in the corners, but you don't feel the bumps as much. So the car kind of just glides over imperfections in a really odd way. I wouldn't call it bad by any means though, and it really does suit that Lexus character of being kind of soft and graceful. To that end, the cabin is actually really quiet as well. Lexus has done a bang-up job of just making sure that there's so few intrusions into this space when it comes to noise. On this grade that we're driving now, which has the bigger of the 2-wheel options, there is a little bit of tyre noise, but that's basically it. There's no other wind noise coming in and deflecting off the windscreen to distract from the driving experience as it sort of glides over the imperfections on the road. But one thing that doesn't make this car is particularly engaging. That's not even to say that this car is particularly slow or not reactive enough in the corners. Actually, the light and somewhat disconnected steering does do a great job of helping you pivot the car around in those corners and make it feel really quick to handle, but it just doesn't quite have the engagement of a lot of its rivals in this space, especially more recent rivals that are moving towards adding a lot more of that driver experience to an EV, which might otherwise be a little bit sanitary. It's not bad, and I think actually a lot of Lexus buyers are really going to like this because it really doubles down on that soft, luxurious promise that the brand has built up over a long time. And again, that's not to say that this car isn't quick enough. It's got dual motors, and one of the interesting things is it's front biased, with most of the power actually being generated by the front motor and a much smaller amount being generated by the rear motor. And you can notice that it's not maybe as breakneck fast as some EVs. We get used to these ridiculous sprint times, and this car is actually quite fast. It's got a hot hatch baiting 5.3 seconds 0 to 100 sprint time, but it's not violent like other EVs are. It's quite smooth to apply that power, and it's quite clever in the way that it uses torque vectoring to keep the car on the straight and narrow in the corners as well. And in terms of being an EV, you've got 4 levels of regen braking, which is a lot, but none of them are a single pedal driving mode, which I think a lot of early EV adopters are really looking for when driving a car like this. That nice regen to a halt, especially in traffic, makes the car feel more efficient and more futuristic. And in this case, you do need to drive it a little bit more than other EVs in this class. And because of that regen braking sort of lacking, you do need to pump the brake pedal a lot more in the corners. Now that is quite drive mode dependent. If you're in sport, for example, the regen is more aggressive, or if you're in the range mode, which maximizes everything to kind of give you the most range possible. But an interesting consequence is the brake pedal does lack a lot of feel. You do actually have to press it quite hard to get a strong reaction out of it, which is not something that I expected. So to sum up the drive experience, this car is quite a bit different from other EVs in its class. While we've gotten used to that kind of firm, reactive feel that brands are often building into these newer EVs, this one is sort of disconnected and electrified and separated from the road. And you know what? I think that's what a Lexus buyer is looking for. As mentioned earlier, the RZ has a 71.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is good for a 400-kilometer driving range on the WLTP cycle. To back this, when it comes to charging time, the RZ is equipped with a 150 kilowatt DC charger for a full charge in roughly 30 minutes. On a slower public AC charger, you can draw a maximum rate of 11 kilowatts, good for a charge in 6.5 hours, while single-phase home charging can be achieved at up to 7 kilowatts for a charge in 10 hours. Lexus throws in a home charger and installation as part of its premium ownership program. Okay, so range and efficiency. The claimed range you might see hover about a bit. There are a few different numbers, but the WLTP number, which is probably going to be the most accurate, is 400 Ks. That assumes an average consumption of 18.7 kilowatt hours to 100 kilometers. And on the drive loops we've been doing today, I was actually surprised to find that this car has actually exceeded that consumption claim, coming down to 18.6 kilowatt hours to 100 kilometers. Now, many rivals in this luxury space consume quite a bit more energy, meaning they have to have bigger battery packs to travel less far. As you'd hope, the RZ packs all the safety kit as standard, including radar-based auto emergency braking, which works to high freeway speeds and detects vulnerable road users even at night. It also scores supply-constrained safety systems like blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert as standard, alongside an impressive complement of 10 airbags. Check out all the details at carsguide.com.au, but for now, the Lexus RZ is yet to be rated by ANCAP. One of the key selling points of the Lexus brand is its ownership promise, which it calls the Encore program. For the RZ, this means installation of a complimentary 7 kilowatt wall box charger for buyers with a garage, both with a wall socket and public Type 2 charging cable included as standard. The program also includes a 3-year ChargeFox subscription, allowing free charging on that fast DC network. Lexus offers 5 years of warranty, 5 years of roadside assist, and 5 years of cap price servicing. The cap price is $395 per yearly or 15,000 kilometer interval. Lexus will also pick up and drop off the vehicle at service time, providing owners with a loaned vehicle in the interim. The high voltage battery warranty also extends to 10 years if the car is serviced according to the logbook and with official Lexus workshops. The brand also offers a series of benefits through its ownership network, like deals at hotels, restaurants, and invites to events like track or golf days. It's an impressive above and beyond suite of offerings befitting a premium brand, although it's worth noting that some rivals have longer service intervals for their EV offerings, as well as free servicing during their warranty periods. So here's the thing. There's sportier EVs out there, there's techier EVs out there, but the one thing that sets the RZ apart is how well it does the luxury thing. And I think that nails the brief for the Lexus buyer, but importantly, it also gives other EV adopters the opportunity to buy something which is a little on the softer side.